What's goody, Shellitronnn here. You can call me Shells, and I'm back at again with a brand new video. And I'm gonna keep it a Bowberry biscuit. I need some answers here because there are some questions that have been brought up by the coaching staff that really do make me believe that once again, there may not be a very clear and concise, a very transparent plan in place here. And to explain that, I have two tweets to show you. The first one right here came a couple days ago from Elena Getzenberg from The Observer. She said, Panthers will be evaluating the backup quarterback job up to Friday. If they are able to keep three, battle may continue into the season. No certainty that they keep all three. And then Joe Person follows it up by saying, Matt Rhule says if Panthers keep three quarterbacks, the backup competition between Will Grier and PJ Walker will continue week to week. Now on the face, that sounds like something, but when you think about it, you think, okay, that's how literally every position in the NFL works. If you're not a starter, if you're one of these backup guys who are rotational pieces, maybe even just one of these guys who's a situational piece, if you're a backup and the third guy on the depth chart, when he gets his chances, he looks better in practice, he looks more engaged, and he's improving faster and more so than you are, your job becomes in jeopardy. That guy might get more playing time. That guy might take your playing time. That's how backups work for literally every position. So competition going through the year makes sense. I get that. But then the question about whether or not the team is going to keep three quarterbacks, that's the biggest part of what's interesting in what Matt Rhule's talking about. Because look, it's not very uncommon for teams to only carry two quarterbacks. If there's a very obvious starter and you have a little bit of confidence in your backup, you're probably going to be cool going into the season with only two quarterbacks. You may have one guy who's young on the practice squad just in case. But this year with this team, it kind of makes sense even more so because there are some questions about the depth at linebacker. There's some questions about who's starting in the secondary. We don't have very much confidence. And look, it is what it is in the secondary. These guys are going to have to be thrown to the fire, but we're still looking for secondary help. There's still questions about the O-line. If these guys are going to be healthy for an extended period of time, who's starting where? There are still some questions about that in some spots. Then we have the question about, okay, are we going to keep two or three tight ends? We also have a fullback. Are we going to keep two or three running backs? And in this Joe Brady offense, this scheme, this spread, we're going to need to have as many receivers as we can afford to. I would not be surprised if we carry 7 receivers, 6 main receivers and one guy who does mainly kick and punt return, who can come in situationally on the field on offense. Probably not too often. We'll probably only keep 6, but I would not be surprised if it's 7. But still, having that extra depth at O-line, linebacker, in the secondary, maybe even tight end. So it would kind of make sense the team could possibly be looking at going into this season with just 2 quarterbacks. But that isn't even the most interesting part of this news. The real question is, if there's this many questions this late into training camp, 2 weeks out from the opening day, your first home game against the Raiders of the regular season, that tells me that Coach Rhule is strongly implying that there's not a very wide gap between what he's seeing from PJ Walker and Will Grier. And that might be a surprise for a lot of Panthers fans because for a lot of Panthers fans, they've already given up on Will Grier after only 1.5 games. And if you've been watching my channel for a while now, you know how I feel about Will Grier. I've mentioned it so many times before in all of my breakdowns of him before the draft, talking about how he looked at West Virginia, the scheme they ran there where he only had to read half the field. I said before the draft I wanted him, but it was going to take at least a full year of being in the NFL before he can touch the field because he does not have the reads. He does not have the progressions. He is not ready for the NFL game in year 1. And I think it's a little weird that a lot of fans think that every single player should be ready to start in their very first year, especially quarterbacks. But then there was also fans who thought that Will Grier should have started over Cam. We won't even address them because we know what that's about. We won't even talk about that. But then there are the fans who around week 13, 14 were talking about the team should pull Kyle Allen, put Will Grier in just to see what we have. I even said in my videos before it happened, I said I'm predicting that once Will Grier shows us what most people knew, most people who were scouting him, looking at his game, actually doing analysis on him before the draft, once we find out in game that Will Grier is not ready to be a starting quarterback in his rookie season, the fans who wanted to see him on the field were going to turn on him extremely quickly. And they did. And for me, that was kind of tough to see because I realized that people do not care about context. This was a rookie quarterback who should have never played a game this season, who got his first start the same week his head coach and his offensive coordinator both got fired. There was no leadership in the quarterback room. The only person who was in the quarterback room, because remember, Cam got hurt before the season started and he did not play a game after week 2. So he was not in the quarterback room. He was not in the locker room. He was not in those meetings with these guys. So he was learning and getting advice from Kyle Allen from week 3 to week 15. I'm not so sure that's the best path to success for a young quarterback. And we do know that having a veteran presence in the locker room is 100% beneficial for a young quarterback to have, and that confidence they can bring, that experience. Kyle Allen could not provide that. So it was real tough for me to see just how quickly everyone turned on Will Grier and just forgot about any kind of context behind what was going on in those games where he played, and then he eventually got hurt. Another thing that I actually predicted before he started a single game for the Panthers, literally everything I said about Will Grier, even before the season, before the draft, came true. And then you get to PJ Walker, who was a standout star in a very short-lived XFL. Let's not talk about how the XFL was basically bottom rung, just above the highest level of college football play. These are grown men, but there were really about 1.5 really good quarterbacks in the XFL, and he was one of them, and the defenses weren't really all that great, so it's kind of hard to really gauge what exactly he could do at the NFL level. You can't really compare what a guy does in the XFL to starting NFL talent, but I still do think that PJ Walker is a good enough backup quarterback for the NFL level. Probably not a starter caliber quarterback. I just don't see that happening. I mean, even given the context of our O-line right now, I just don't think that PJ Walker would be a starter on any team in the NFL. I think that's pretty obvious though. But when you think about Rev Rhule implying that there's no real big gap between Will Grier and PJ Walker, his statements really do invite more questions than they provide answers. Did Will Grier get a lot better? Is PJ Walker not as good as we thought, and Will Grier is the same as he was last year? I am not sure. But if they're still questioning about whether or not they want to keep 2 or 3 quarterbacks right now, then I am wondering what exactly is going on. And the whole talk about there being competition throughout the year doesn't mean anything to me at all. It just means that, I mean, this is business as usual for the depth chart. It is what it is there. But I'm really questioning what's going on here. If there just isn't really a big gap between the two, then what exactly is going to be the deciding factor between which guy stays on the roster if the team only holds 2 quarterbacks this year? Is it going to be athleticism? Is it going to be arm strength? Is it going to be just the contract? What exactly is the criteria, or I guess the litmus test, for which quarterback stays on the roster if they decide to not go the 3 quarterback route? Could it possibly be that we just say, look, it's a sunk cost. We cannot get rid of Will Grier. We spent a comp 3rd pick on him. That has value. It had value back then. We could have picked up anything, really. So we have to stick with them. I have a lot of questions, and it all starts with, how do these guys really look in training camp? I don't have those answers. Only Rev Rhule and Joe Brady have those answers, and I am very interested to see exactly how this plays out, and it's going to have to play out very, very soon. Real soon. And I'm going to have the whole 53-man roster predictions coming up very soon as well, so I'll give you my thoughts on that and who makes the team, who doesn't, what position groups have more players on them than maybe usual or than what is standard for most of the league. So look out for that video. Let me know your thoughts on this topic right here about PJ Walker, Will Grier. Do you think Will Grier was given a fair shot last year? Do you think he was set up to fail by the front office and coaching staff? Do Do you think that PJ Walker is significantly better than Will Grier? And what do you make of these comments from Matt Rhule? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. And you already know what to do with that like button.
Cheers to you, appreciate the chance. Being told y'all I been the man. Being told y'all I had the gift. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Real ones gonna recommend. Count this as another win.